Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Hello, everybody.
How are you? Hope you had a good weekend. And if you're a Chiefs fan, huge comeback.
And
huge
if you're
from
not,
behind.
then I don't know who you are.
Yeah. But another chance this weekend.
Hi, Lance. Yes. Well, happy Tuesday, like we said. And here in Topeka, we are de-thawing after a frozen weekend. I was so happy to kind of see the warmer temperatures. So good morning, Lance. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Lance.
All right, guys. So just like the description said, today we're going to be talking about appraisals. And we say this every week, but we know we have people that watch us that aren't in Topeka, but we will be speaking from the perspective of our local market here in Topeka, Kansas. I'm Kelli Higgins, and today I am with Darin Stephens. We are with Stone & Story Real Estate Group here at Keller Williams One Legacy Partners. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So appraisals. So let's talk about, let's talk about it from a seller perspective.
Yes.
And, you've gotten to this place of you put your house on the market, you've gotten a contract, and you may have gotten a contract that was a conventional loan. You may have gotten a contract that was for a veteran, which is a VA loan, or you may have gotten an FHA contract. And so when you think about the three, those are typically, or cash, and you don't really have to deal with appraisals when you've got cash for the most part. So if you look at the other three, there are combinations of things that you need to think about with those loan types.
Yep.
And especially for the VA and the FHA loan types, when an appraiser comes out, an appraiser is looking at the value of your house, and they're looking at the condition of your house, and they're looking at if it's an FHA or a VA loan, there's a set of guidelines that they're looking at to cover off.
Yeah, sometimes some of those can be even as simple as handrails going downstairs, downspouts coming off of your roof. They want to see that water is being pushed away from the foundation. They want to make sure that windows are able to open, that are supposed to open. So sometimes we get VA or FHA loans on older homes that maybe have had windows painted. And if you can't open those, that is a problem.
Yep.
They want to see smoke alarms. They want to see certain safety precautions taken on hot water tanks. Those are kind of little things. Of course, as real estate experts, those are some of the things that we can guide you through when we're looking at the home from a perspective of an appraisal. But like Darin said, an FHA or a VA appraisal will have a lot more conditions than just a regular conventional loan.
And a couple other things, it could be GFIs in the kitchen, and around sinks and water sources. Could be peeling paint on the outside. All things that when you sit down and you list the house, you probably have had a conversation already. Hey, these may be things that come up and a potential VA and FHA loan.
And when we see those loans on the offer, that is something that we also have a conversation with you about at that time. Especially if you have more than one offer, it is something to consider when you're comparing the two offers, what kind of loan that they are getting, because you will be held to a higher standard with those FHA and VA loans. And you might be questioning why that is, and it really comes down to the fact that an FHA and a VA loan are both federally backed by the government, and so they just have the higher standards than a regular conventional loan.
Yep, and doesn't mean it's impossible. These are, a lot of times these are easy things to fix.
Yep.
So, have the conversation up front and just be prepared. Then it's a matter of, and a lot of those little things, you can get, some of the stuff you can do yourself.
Yeah, like peeling paint. I mean, you just scrape that off. They want to make sure that there are no flakes of peeling paint still left behind. So that is something important. I've seen a lot of people scrape the paint, but then
it's all on the ground. Yes.
Then it's on the ground.
So, and or a handyman. So all things to consider, but nothing that should, for the most part, stop the deal from going through. So
one other thing I see sometimes get caught by appraisers is concrete. They don't like any, typically the rule of thumb we go by is 2 inches. If it's a trip hazard, and appraisers might not going to like that.
Yeah, and some of those, there are some hard and fast rules for FHA and VA, and some of it is really the interpretation of the appraiser. So appraiser A may call it out, and appraiser B may not. So it's all in how they interpret the guidelines for you during that particular appraisal process.
And I think it's also important for us to kind of step back and look at the timeline of an appraisal. So I feel like it is one of the only steps of an entire transaction that we just, as real estate agents, we don't have a ton of control over.
Right.
We don't order the appraisal. It is something that your bank, whoever you're getting your loan through, is actually the person that orders it. And then it goes into an appraiser pool where the actual loan officer has no control over what appraiser they get to go to that home. And they actually really have very little contact, if any at all, with the appraisal, because they do want to keep those two separate just for regulation sake. They don't really want any of,
a lot of that
a
lot of that switched over, and the reasoning behind that was, the 2008, 9, 10 crash
loans.
And all the fraudulent loans that were going on. They really want to try and keep it as separate as possible, and rightfully so.
Yep, I agree. And so once that goes out to the appraisal pool, an appraiser picks it up, and then that's when it is assigned to that person. And so we also don't ever know who's going to get it.
Right.
We have great relationships with many appraisers in the area. And so it's not unusual for us to know that person or even be able to contact that person. But again, we don't know from the beginning who it's going to be until it's actually assigned.
Yeah, and there's things that, as we go in and know who it is, there might be things that we want to pass on to them. Mm-hmm. If you've had any remodels, if you've done anything to the house, things that, are helpful for them in order to determine the value of it. So that might be some things that we would pass on to them above and beyond just the contract and what they see on MLS.
Yeah, and also, something that we can communicate with them is if it is a house that might be hard to find comparable homes to, that's something that we can kind of help communicate with the appraiser, is maybe homes sold that they haven't considered. Maybe something that sold that wasn't on the MLS, that was just a private sale or something like that. Those are things that we like to communicate with the appraiser with as well.
And if it's in a rural area and, you've got to go broader. So there's definitely things that as realtors, the listing agent, we can help with in order to make that, a smooth process and give the appraiser additional information that they may or may not have.
Yeah. And typically an appraisal comes back in about a week. That is not set in stone, obviously. And as the market picks up, especially spring and summer, it can take a little bit longer because they are so busy. The regulations to become an appraiser has also increased. So there is less and less of them anymore. So it's harder to get them out there when they're really busy with the busy market as well. So that's kind of the timeline you look at.
Yep, and then
it can be tough to stay around and wait on that too, though.
Right, I know. Nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So if the house comes back in, a couple things can happen from the appraisal. House comes back in and it is valued at or above the contract price. So we're good with value, but we may have, like we talked earlier, some of those requirements that we need to take care of. So what will happen is the appraiser will give us a list of items that need to be taken care of in order to satisfy this appraisal, especially if it's an FHA or VA loan. And then we need to work to get those things taken care of. The appraiser, prior to closing, is going to have to come back out and re-inspect our work.
Yeah, we get asked a lot. Well, can't you just send them pictures? Or, why do we have to wait on them to come back? You know what? That's a really important part of their job, is to go back and inspect that the repairs have been truly done and done correctly. And I have to respect that, and we have to allow them to do their job. And so we do have to have them go back out and look again.
Yep, and that's their name on that.
That's right.
And so they want to make sure that it's taken care of. So, we put that list together, we knock that list out, and then we have the appraiser come back out and sign off on it, to then go back to the lender to say we're clear to close as far as the appraisal part of the process is concerned.
Yep.
So.
There is usually an additional fee with them going back out, so that's why we like to try to get these things done before they even come to begin with, so that way we don't have to worry about them coming back out.
Yeah, because it's their time, so they normally it's about $150 that they charge for their time and going back out. So that's something, as much as we can get done up front, to Kelly's point, makes it that much easier for us to go through the process.
Something else that I usually run across that people are unaware of is that the appraisal is paid for by the buyer. It is their sole information.
Yep.
So as a seller, I can understand that it is confusing, that you may not ever know what it came back appraised at. That is up to the buyer to release that information to you. The only thing that we will know is that it either appraised or it didn't appraise.
Green light, red light.
Yeah. So that can sometimes be a little frustrating, but it's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So this week, we really wanted to focus in on the seller side of appraisals. And so if you guys have any questions going through this or watching this, please just leave a comment below. We're more than happy to answer those questions.
Yep.
Hey, Ethan. Hey, Ben. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Ben.
Next week, we would like to kind of dig into the appraisal side from the buyer's perspective. When you're making an offer and asking for closing costs and that kind of thing, that can kind of come into play when we're looking at appraisals if they don't come back on time or at cost. And then also what happens if they don't come back on time. That is a very real thing, especially if there are conditions that have to be met. And so we'll kind of talk about what happens to the transaction when that happens next week, next Tuesday.
So more to come. Hope you guys have a great week. Enjoy. It's going to get cold on Saturday.
Yeah, but we are doing open houses.
We're open houses on Saturday, so come out and see us. Check out our Facebook. You'll know where we are. Come say hi, and we look forward to seeing you. Have a great week.
Have
Take
a great
care.
Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.